Welcome to the BioNexus Health podcast with Dr. Jodi Dashore, who holds a PhD in integrative medicine, is board certified in integrative pediatrics, an internationally recognized pioneering clinician, and author. And now here's your host of BioNexus Health podcast, Dr. Jodi Dashore.
A little bit about, how you found BioNexus, what was going on in your life then, what made you decide. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the BioNexus Health podcast. Today we will be discussing about recovery from chronic Lyme disease using all natural herbal methods. And I have with me today Tony, who will be sharing his incredible journey of many years with chronic Lyme and co-infections. And one thing that I found very deeply moving was that at a really young age, right, Tony was speaking about mind, body, spirit, and how a multi-pronged approach is required to heal from a very debilitating, depressing chronic illness. So I think those of you watching will find this episode quite inspirational. So let's go ahead and without further ado, let's welcome Tony to today's podcast.
Good afternoon, Dr. Dashore. How you doing?
I'm good, Tony. How are you? I'm glad you're here today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So let's just, dive right in. Can you tell me a little bit about, how you found BioNexus, what was going on in your life then, what made you decide that you wanted to go an all herbal route for your chronic Lyme?
So this actually happened. My journey started in college. So I, ended up feeling really fatigued and generally unwell. All of the symptoms. Kind of thought it could have been my lifestyle at that point. I was not taking care of myself, not eating well, drinking alcohol. So I thought, maybe it's that. And then it just never got better. I started getting body aches and I was like, this isn't right. So I went the traditional route to begin with, and just basically got round after round of antibiotics. And all they did was just get stronger and stronger. I was getting injections of bacillin in my rear, every couple of weeks or every couple of days. And all of that just made me feel worse. I never felt improvement from that. And I just got tired of it. And I would go to different traditional doctors. They would do the same tests, give me the same, antibiotics, and it just wasn't getting better. So actually through a client of ours, they had a nephew or a niece that had seen you. That was my reference to you. And I said, that's great. I would love to try this route. I've always kind of leaned that direction in my life, but never had the need for a holistic doctor approach to anything. So I was very open to the idea. In meeting you, I was so relieved because you knew what I was going through. You understood it. You validated it. You didn't tell me that I was making it up. I didn't have fibromyalgia and there's nothing we can do about it besides rest. And it felt so great to, like I said, feel validated. I wasn't making it up. I did not feel well. And the idea of, we've been around, humans have been around long enough, and, going back to the basics, nature is what heals you. The toxic soup that we live in is what is hurting us. And then getting my cup overfilled when I got bit by a tick at one point, and got Lyme disease, co-infections, and then as it turned out, mold and mycotoxins. So that's what led me to you. I've been with you for many years, and it just, my problem is I keep getting exposed to mold, getting tick bites, getting mosquito bites, that sort of thing. So, you've always helped me, but I've stuck around just because, it's unfortunately, it keeps happening to me.
For
But
you, right, Tony? So it's an occupational hazard for you. Now, what is interesting is that I remember when you came to me, it was misdiagnosis, of course, fibromyalgia, chronic
right,
fatigue. But you did know that you had had tick bites, Lyme, and co-infections. You had all of those antibiotics, for a while. And then you were not aware that mold and mycotoxins and environmental toxins played a role, like
right,
that big of a role, right? Because in your line of work, you do get occasionally exposed to mold.
right,
Construction, right?
correct.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we renovate houses. I go just, even to look at a new project, it's you go into someone's basement and they say, hey, I want to, do X, Y, and Z, and you're down there just in a musty basement, and it's hard to say, excuse me, I'm not going to look at your job. I would love to do the job, but I can't I can't go look at it. So it's just, and then, if we get the job, you end up being down there, no matter how much I try not to be. I don't spend the days down there doing the demo or anything, but I gotta direct my crew and everything. So it is an occupational hazard. I'm very aware of it. I try my best to, mask up when I can, wear a respirator if I'm in that environment for any extended period of time. It's just, there's travel, you stay in a hotel room that has a little musty smell, that sort of thing
Yes.
happens. And it just, for me, it's very difficult to completely eliminate mold from my life. So I just, knowing what I know from you, I have the protocol, I know what to do, I know how to, do my best to get it back out of my system if I am exposed. So again, thanks to you, I would never have found that, traditionally. So
Of course, yes, that's the key. We treated you for many years, and you slowly but surely recovered on many fronts. You were able to get back to work full time. Your gut, your energy, your brain fog, sinuses,
yeah,
muscle aches and pains, all of those got better. And then I do remember, occasional additional tick bites and, of course, mold exposure. The one thing that I really appreciate is that you, understand that it is not just about exposure, it's also about lifestyle choices. And right, and you were the first one to admit, hey, doc, I haven't been fully on the wagon as far as my diet is concerned, and I'm planning on going back. So I'm glad you understand lifestyle choices, the role that plays. Often I'll have people come to me, not just myself, other practitioners who do, who treat Lyme and mold. Um, and patients feel that the protocol isn't working. Well, the protocol is not going to work as well if you're not observing the kind of precautions, environmental and personal choices.
absolutely.
So, right, would you agree with that?
I'd agree 100%. For years, I kind of waited for that magic pill, that magic herb, that magic just something next that I was going to do that was going to magically cure me. And that thing never came. It turned into, you got to put the work in. You gotta, it's full circle. It's going back to the basics. Like I said, it's, eating clean, eating healthy, even like I started doing breath work. I'm not much of a meditator. I would love to start meditating more, but there's certain things that I practice that is what brought me over the ledge, that got me to a point where I don't identify as a sick person anymore. That was really, really big to me, because I would always say, like, thanks for the invite. I'm not going to come. I have chronic Lyme disease. I don't want to play
Right.
soccer today. I have chronic Lyme disease. It was always that diagnosis that I had in my head that limited me, because I would tell myself, I would tell everyone else, I have chronic Lyme disease. And I just, I don't do that anymore. And a lot of it is just, my mentality, my mindset that shifted. I practice gratitude. On the way here, I wasn't having a great day. I honestly, we lost a family member last night, and the weather's bad. I just, it wasn't a great day, and I said, you know what, I get to do this today. It's that I don't have to do this. I get to do this. And a lot of these things I'm saying are cliche. They're things that you would hear, a lot of motivational speakers say, but I've been listening to them and it helps me a lot. That's what got me over the edge and got me to feel better. The mind body connection was just, when I changed my mindset, I started to feel better. After the years and years of protocols and traditional medicines and everything else, I started to eat better and just change my mindset. And now I feel much better.
I am sorry to hear. I wasn't aware that you lost somebody.
It's okay. It's not an immediate family member. It was but it was kind of a sudden thing. So
I'm really sorry. Yes, it's been a crazy winter this time with all the cold coming back with the
yeah,
fury and many illnesses and viruses going around. It's just been, yeah. I really appreciate you making it though. Thank
of
you.
course. Yeah. Yep. I wanted to do this. I hope if, I'm hoping, if I heard myself saying this 10 years ago, I think it would have helped me. So the hope is always if somebody hears this and it could help them, I want that to happen. So that's why I was eager to do this podcast for you because I have a long journey. It was 2011 when my journey started. That's a long time, and I know there's other people in my position that have been dealing with this for years and years. And for me, I feel like I've gotten over that hump, and if I can help somebody do that, then that's what I would love to do.
You can you tell us a little bit how you handled the your customized herbal protocol? Were you able to manage your protocol well? Did you find the herbals helpful? I mean, we know you saw a lot of improvements. I just wanted to hear it from you, the feasibility of making your herbal cocktails and taking your supplements. I mean, I guess with you gradually getting better kept you motivated, but obviously it wasn't a magic pill.
Correct. Yeah, and I mean it was hard. It's a learning curve. For me, I don't have a completely regular schedule. I don't work from home. I'm out of the house by 6:45, so I have to prepare all my things, and then you got to think of take things with food, without food, together, without each other. So it's kind of it takes a little while to get into the groove of what comes when with what and how to spread things out. There's the things that you're supposed to have on an empty stomach, and then you have to have it with food, like I said. So it's a learning curve, but once you get into that routine, it's easy enough to follow. And then you do it long enough, and it's second nature. I finish dinner, and then you get the tinctures out. I prepare. I put all my pills in little baggies together, so they're all ready for the week. When I start the week, and then it's just you get used to it. I learned you got to put the tinctures in. You got to mix them all together, and then you can't drink it right away. So I have a certain container I put them in to bring them with me once I do eat, and then so like I said, it's just something you got to figure out. And once you get into the groove of it, it's easy enough.
Yes, exactly. One thing that people really appreciate is that when you feel internally that you're doing something that's all natural and there are no side effects.
Yes.
So that is one good thing. I mean, everyone goes through die-off reaction, and I'm sure you must have had die-off reactions as well, which means that the herbals are working
Of
actually,
course. Yep. Of course.
right? That's wonderful. So one thing you mentioned was your mindset,
Yeah.
and yeah, I really appreciate, like, it's not just that you mentioned that you're trying to live mindfully. Additionally, you don't identify as a patient anymore. You just identify as a human being, and sure, as a dad, as a husband, as a son, and as a friend, and you're out there. If you get an invite, you go in. That is true. I mean, to a certain extent, your immune system needs to be in charge. And if you bring in the mindset of, oh my God, I'm scared, I'm debilitated, I'm going to be debilitated, I am a patient, I have Lyme. You're not Lyme, you're a person
Right.
who has conquered Lyme disease and co-infections and mold exposure, and you've come this far. You have a full and productive life. I remember your daughter in the beginning was just a twinkle in your eye, and then before you knew it, now she's what, 4 years old?
She's 7 now.
Sorry?
She's 7.
No way. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Still that twinkle though.
Yes, of course. Yes, your daddy's little girl.
Yep, absolutely.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, it's been, wonderful to know you over the years, and I'm glad you're in a really good place right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I again, it's just I don't know. It is the mindset that was the biggest change for me. Like you said, when I I used to feel worse, but I would focus on how I felt every day, all day. This is hurting me. This is bothering me. And everything I did, it was, is this going to make it worse today? Is that going to make it better? And it was, I couldn't not think about my illness. I couldn't make it through a day. I couldn't make it through an hour without thinking about some sort of symptom that was happening to me. And my symptoms would always change. They'd always evolve. It'd be something new. And then I was like, well, is this still this? Do I have something worse? Is it getting, I had that, that mind that would race, and then it would just turn into something else. And now it's like, I know what to expect. And hey, if I feel something, I don't have to focus on it anymore. And that was hard for me. It took a long time for me to not focus on my symptoms and to not, really feel them and just focus on them, to be able to just focus on what's around me instead of what's inside of me. It's a hard thing. And I know, that took me quite a bit of time to get over. But, after getting over that hump I keep talking about, I'm there. If I feel something, I put it away and I don't focus on it. It's because when you focus on it, it feels worse. And it 100%. If you focus on something, it's gonna feel worse. I could sit here and think like, oh, my shoulder hurts when it doesn't, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe my shoulder does hurt. If you, there's so much that's in your head that you can change, and for the better, and it can change you for the worse if you're not careful. So that's just another thing that took me a while, but another piece of advice I'd love to give everyone is to try not to focus on it.
And it's important to keep in mind for those watching, right, Tony, that you've worked on getting better. Your immune system is better. Your organs internally, we know that Lyme and mold affect multiple organ systems in the body. Those have been worked on for many years. They're healed. They're doing well, functioning well. And here you are today in this place, where you're able to put the occasional symptoms aside, because we know
Right.
that Lyme disease can only be put into remission, and mold and mycotoxins will depend on your genetic susceptibility as well. And Tony, for you, I believe you have a genetic susceptibility for Lyme, but not for mold, and that has helped you with your occupational hazard that you
Yep.
have. So once you had a handle on your chronic Lyme symptoms, and of course, co-infections were treated and eliminated, that's when your immune system took charge back again.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm not saying that your mind
Very
is going to
cool.
change everything. It's not going to. That's not going to be the only thing that's going to. It all works together.
Yes.
But one or the other is not going to do it. You got to, like I said, it's got to be all together.
I'm glad to hear you mention that, Tony, because yes, when there is inflammation caused from environmental toxins, infections will thrive
Right.
because your body's not healthy. And when you get rid of that inflammation from environmental toxins, that is when your infections will start to recede, and you're able to put extremely smart bacteria like the spirochete back into remission.
Right.
So, and another key thing is that you have your herbal maintenance protocol and you know when to go back on it if you get exposed, instead of going into a state of panic. You
Right.
know that, all right, I just need to get back on my protocol for a few weeks, and then I should be back to normal, your
Right.
new normal.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yes, that is very cool. See, this is so inspirational for young people watching. And you started with me when you were, of course, much younger than you are now. You're still young to me, you are, and to many watching, I'm sure you are. So I'm glad you decided to do this. I'm very happy that you're in a good place in life.
Yes. Thank you. And I again, thank you so much for everything you did for me.
Oh, absolutely. It was my pleasure. Yes, it was wonderful working with you. It was so refreshing to have um, a young man, who is holistically oriented, who understands that nature has so much to offer,
Yes.
and who's been through so much. And I've seen you grow over the years into someone, so compassionate and caring and so confident and successful with everything. So I'm really happy for you, and I'm glad you came here today for the podcast.
Yeah. Well, thank you for those words.
Of course, of course. All right. So, okay, slight hiccup there. But for those watching, I hope you found this to be as wonderful as I did speaking with Tony today. So thank you for being here. And I will see you at the next episode of the BioNexus Health podcast. Namaste. Keep smiling.
Thank you for joining Master Herbalist Dr. Jodi Dashore, Director of the BioNexus Health Clinic and BioNexus Herbals, on the BioNexus Health podcast, where we explore and share information and stories about recovering and healing from chronic and environmental illnesses such as mold biotoxin illness, Lyme disease, autism spectrum disorder, fatigue, Crohn's and colitis, mast cell activation syndrome, PANS, and more. Please help us grow our message by subscribing to our podcast channel and sharing the podcast on your social networks. For more information, visit bionexushealth.com.
Information within this video, audio, or text, collectively known as the podcast, has not been reviewed by the FDA. Nothing within the podcast is intended as or should be construed as medical advice. Information is for general informational and educational purposes only. Consumers of the podcast should consult with their healthcare practitioners for medical recommendations. Seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider. Do not disregard the advice of a healthcare provider based on any information from the podcast. The information within the podcast may contain information concerning dietary supplements or over-the-counter products that are not drugs. Our dietary supplement products are not intended for use as a means to cure, treat, prevent, diagnose, or mitigate any disease or other medical or abnormal condition.